Hi, it's Connie from handmadehome.us, and today I'm making a video that's a little different from my usual because I want to show you how I make these simple DIY vine wreaths. It is so fun and easy to make that once you try one, you're going to come up with so many great decorating ideas for these wreaths. We are using Virginia creeper vines today because we have a rose bush that's being a little overrun with the Virginia creeper, and it's time to do a little bit of trimming. All right, to get started, we're going to get some of our vines here from this bush. We have a Virginia creeper and it creeps everywhere. So as you can see, this is a rose bush, and we are going to just kind of get some of these vines out of here. If you don't have Virginia creeper in your yard, it's okay. You can use a wide variety of other vines, such as grapevines, clematis, wisteria. You could even use willow. Any vine that is pliable but hardens as it dries will work just fine. This one here I made about a year ago. I decided to leave on some of the leaves, and you can see how they dried nicely. And I also left these little curly cues on there. I thought it gave it a nice rustic look. You can use these to decorate in your home. You can hang them on your Christmas tree for something rustic, or you could even use them for your tablescape decorations. At Easter, you could maybe put some eggs in them, or some fake birds sitting on top. Anything, it would look really cute. So let's go ahead and make these. I am probably going to do most of this video as a voiceover because the birds are chirping really loud today, and it's also a little bit windy, so hopefully you can hear me. If not, I will re-record this from inside the house. Alright, now that we have our vines, we'll take them around back and get to taking off some of this foliage and wrapping up our wreaths.
I ended up gathering 6 to 8 vines for the wreath I'm making. These vines ranged between 3 and 6 feet long. Depending on the size wreath you'd like to make, you may want to get some longer length vines, but I'm aiming for a wreath that is about 10 inches in diameter, so these lengths will work just fine for me. Vines that are really long can be nice because you don't have to keep trying to weave in the ends, and you can just keep working the loop around and around. But they can also be a little detrimental because they are so much to work with. Whichever way you decide to do it will work just fine. First, we're going to start by removing all of the foliage off of our vines. As I showed before, I do like to leave a few leaves and some of those curly little tendrils because I do think that it gives a charming characteristic to a homemade wreath, but you can leave as few or as many of the leaves as you like. Now that our vines are all cleaned off, we're going to start by forming our first circle just to get the size of the frame that we would like to work with. To start with the thicker end of the vine, I like to just wrap it around and curve it into that circular shape of the wreath, and once it gets to the size that I would like, I take that thicker end and just twist it around itself, creating almost like you're going to be tying a knot, but you're not going to pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to start working with the other end and just keep tucking it into the center of your loop, pulling the whole vine all the way through and working around and around, twisting and wrapping until you get to the end of the vine. Then you take that little tail end and you just kind of wrap it around and stick it into one of the little gaps that's left in your frame. Now the vine that I am working with here has multiple canes to it, and I'm going to let that work to my advantage because these vines are so narrow that it would take several separate vines to make the thickness of a wreath that I'm going for. But having these multiple canes, I'm going to just kind of hold them together, and I'm going to wrap around this loop that I've created and continue wrapping and tucking, and it's going to thicken my wreath up a little faster. If you're working with thin vines like this, you could also take 2 to 3 of the vines, holding them together as you work and wrapping them all at once, and then start working with single vines after that, and it will just bulk up your wreath a little faster. Now these vines are quite strong, so don't be afraid to tug and press them into that circular shape that you're going for. If you hear a little cracking, that's okay. They can withstand the pressure as you work. If you're having a hard time getting your vines wrapped around, you can take the loose end, that little tail end, and stick it through the center of your wreath first, and then just like you're using a needle and thread, pull that vine through from the tail end back. When I start my second vine, I'm going to just take that thick end of the vine and poke it into one of the little gaps that's left from creating the first initial base, and then I'll begin wrapping and tucking and working that vine around and around just like I did the first. Now we're going to repeat this method for as many times as we need to get our wreath as thick as we would like it. I'm probably going to end up using about 6 different vines for mine. And once we have all of our vines wrapped around our wreath, we're going to just use our hands to shape it into a nice circular form. You can make these wreaths whatever size you prefer, whatever will go with your decor or the idea that you have. It's totally up to you.
All right, now that we have our wreath base, you can leave this base just like this if you want to have just kind of that rustic look. You could hang it with some twine or even a burlap ribbon, and it would look really pretty like this. You could use anything from dried leaves to dried flowers. You could use different types of grasses, or even use some silk flowers if you'd prefer that. Anything you choose will look great. Today I'm going to decorate my wreath base with some stems that I picked up at my local grocery store. I got some eucalyptus and some St. John's wort stems, and I think it will make a really pretty spring and summertime wreath. Over time, that eucalyptus and St. John's wort will dry right on the wreath, and it will be pretty even with the dried flowers. So let's get decorating our wreath.
Now that your vine wreath base is complete, it's time to decorate. Tools for this project that you may need are some floral wire, wire snips, garden clippers, along with your chosen florals and greenery for decorating. Before starting, I like to cut several lengths of floral wire so I'm prepared to start wrapping my greenery on to my wreath. These lengths should be anywhere from 12 to 16 inches long. The length will depend on the thickness of your wreath. Keep in mind that you would like a length long enough to wrap around the wreath and the greenery 2 to 3 times. Before starting to attach any of my greenery, I like to make a plan of how I want the wreath to look, and then I start snipping the greenery into the shorter length. I like to collect up some of my greenery along with some of my color and make a small bouquet. And using the wire, I attach the entire bouquet to the wreath. Just wrap the wire around both the bouquet and the wreath a couple of times and then twist it tight at the ends, tucking the ends into the wreath so there's no sharp edges poking through. When choosing materials to decorate your wreath, keep in mind that you should have some greenery along with something with a little bit of color. For that, you could use anything like flowers or flower buds or even berries. I like to place one of the bouquets going in one direction and the other going in the opposite direction. And then notice you'll have a small gap in between the stems of those two bouquets. Then I'll take a smaller amount of greenery and my colored floral, make my bouquet with that, and use it to cover up that empty space. Place your florals in different areas along the wreath, just to make sure you have it placed in the perfect position. If you choose to use silk florals, you also have the option of using hot glue to attach your florals onto the wreath rather than using the floral wire. Thank you for joining me in this video on how to make your own DIY spring and summertime wreath. I'd love to hear about what some of the foliages you decided to choose to add to your summertime wreath. For more videos like this, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for making this DIY wreath with me, and we'll see you next time. Bye!
I'm going to decorate my wreath. I'm going to be decorating my wreath today using some stems that I picked up at my local grocery store. I'm going to be decorating my wreath today using some fresh stems that I picked up at my grocery store, I'm going to be decorating my wreath base today with some fresh stems that I picked up at my local grocery store. Okay, this woodpecker is out of control. It's sitting up in a tree right here. I'm just out in my backyard and I was going to start filming and I heard a little bird sound, and look at this, I believe it's a pileated woodpecker that came out to look for some grubs on this stump